Welcome to Critical DMG, a podcast about two best friends who might have grown up but never grew out of their love for the Game Boy. We will be playing and reviewing every North American title released on Nintendo's original handheld console. This is episode 9. I'm Tony, and I hate to say, this was more a fortress of disappointment than a fortress of fear.
Fear of the disappointment, I suppose. Yeah, and I'm Jeff, and this week we're talking about Wizards and Warriors X, the Fortress of Fear. Tony, before we dive into your little intro, I think we have a quiz question from last week, so do you want to remind us what that was?
I do. Last week's Motocross Maniacs quiz question was, while Konami is always remembered for many of its classic game IPs in the early gaming years, some of the more notable ones were Ultra Games releases in the US, which was the company that was the shell corp behind Konami's releases in the US and the NES. You'll have to listen to that in the last episode. Anyway, Ultra Games' first release on the original NES was also the first entry in which long-running stealth game series? Jeff, did you have an answer or a guess?
No idea. I would have probably just said some like random stealth game, but I don't like stealth games, so I don't even know any. Like Tom Clancy is, I think, the only one that I know.
Could you imagine? Wow. No, it's Metal Gear. The very first Metal Gear was on the NES, and here in the United States, it was put out by Konami via Ultra Games.
I was like Tom Clancy or whatever Snake is from, and I think Snake's from Metal Gear, so I guess maybe I would have been kind of right.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, definitely would not have gotten that.
Some of the other games that came out from Ultra at the same time were things like Ninja Turtles and Q*bert.
Ooh, okay. With that out of the way, let's start talking about Wizards and Warriors.
Wizards and Warriors X on episode 9. We were one off.
Which is the third game in the series for some reason, but, you know.
We'll have to get into that, yeah.
So based on your intro, I'm going to assume you vehemently say someone should play this game.
I'm conflicted on this one, but I think my ultimate answer is no, they should not play it. I've got a lot to probably say, but I think my answer is no.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was a little surprised you came out of the gates seeming a little bit opinionated on it.
Oh, I am.
I would ultimately say no. Yeah, I was kind of middle of the road on it. A little indifferent, if you will.
I'm not. I am definitely not indifferent. I have opinions about this one because the disappointment was pretty stinging for a while.
All right. Well, aside from the epic box art, can you tell us what the back of the box told us and why we should have been excited about this?
Absolutely. Wizards and Warriors X, Fortress of Fear. The incredible saga of Wizards and Warriors continues. As Kuros, you'll enter the dreaded Fortress of Fear in your pursuit of the evil wizard Malkil. Hundreds of enemy encounters await you. Deadly bats and other flying beasts attack from above. Scorching fireballs and arrows speed toward you, and skin-crawling spiders and undead skeletons appear from the darkness. Defeat them all. Only those with the blackest of hearts dwell among the 18 levels of challenging gameplay. But the rewards are great. Riches beyond belief, keys to long-lost treasures and magic spells and potions. And what better reward could you seek than a final encounter with the evil wizard Malkil himself? Beware, Kuros. Others have journeyed into the Fortress of Fear, but none have returned alive. This game pack for use with the Game Boy Compact video game system. Don't think I've seen that before.
Yeah, as we start seeing more, I guess, developers and publishers, I feel like the wording is getting a little interesting, but I do take a lot of exception to all the time they call out spells and magic and all of that, because you don't have any of that.
Yes. Hundreds of enemy encounters await you. Hundreds, Jeff.
Maybe 100 if you count if you walk back and forth, maybe you get to the hundreds.
Hundreds because they respawn.
Yes. So I guess before we dive too deeply into all of that, this is a sequel to Wizards and Warriors 2. Why this is X, as far as I could tell, no one knows. Even at the time, people were questioning why they went from 1 to 2 to X, but it is a sequel to Wizards and Warriors 2.
Which is on the NES, we should mention.
Correct, yeah. It came out in, I believe, 89 in the US.
The NES version games are pretty well regarded. I don't know if you had actually looked into them in doing any of the background for this entry in the series, but especially for people who grew up with them, the NES versions are pretty well loved.
Yeah, I definitely saw that, and it looked like, aside from a few pinch points, people liked this game well enough as well. It looks like it fell short of the predecessors, but still wasn't hated, I suppose. With that, that's a quick background. Is there anything else you kind of want to talk about with that, or do you want to dive right into the mechanics?
I don't think I have anything else to go over. It is time to have opinions.
All right, let's have opinions. All right, Tony. So how long, I guess, did you beat the game? How long did you play it? All of that fun stuff.
I did beat it.
Oh, okay.
It took me multiple tries across a few different avenues of play, and I think overall somewhere in the ballpark of 3 hours for all of the time that I invested in it.
Okay.
But it was only managed with the use of modern save tools and things like that.
So I did not beat it. I played for probably, I would say, around 2.5 hours. Mm-hmm. The game is broken down into 5 chapters, they call it, with 18 levels. So each chapter has multiple levels. Honestly, I feel like there wasn't a huge difference in the levels and things. You kind of just walk through a door, and sometimes that's a new level, sometimes it's not a new level.
Yeah, levels is a little generous, I think.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, it really felt like the next level was just a hallway or something.
Yeah, exactly. So kind of unclear. I think I got to chapter 2 or chapter 3 in my first playthrough, which was completely blind, no save states, how the devs intended, all of that fun stuff.
Same for me.
Level 3 took me probably about 45 minutes, and then I gamed over. There's no continues. There's no selecting what level you want to start from. So you have to start all the way from the beginning. Online, I was seeing people claimed anywhere from 5 to 10-ish hours to beat the game. I'm assuming that is bone stock, all of that.
Sure.
If you die, you start over.
Uh-huh.
I did look up the speedruns, which I promise I won't bring up speedruns in every episode.
Or will we?
Ooh. I did look up the speedruns, and the current world record, which, was submitted 8 months ago, which I felt was pretty recent. But it was 9 minutes and 40 some seconds. So quite quick.
Whoa.
And no glitches. Pretty much playing the game straight out.
Whoa.
Yeah, I found that interesting. I guess, if you know what you're doing.
I was going to say, one of my notes is that memorization is the byword for this
1000%.
game. If you are able to recognize where the enemies are going to show up, you are able to know what is inside every treasure chest because they never change. You know where all of the secret rooms and stuff are. If you are able to map that stuff out for yourself, either on paper or in your brain or your reflexes or whatever else it is, if you can keep track of that, this game is definitely much more doable than it seems at first blush. There are just several things about it that even if you do a really good job of memorizing, just some of the game design decisions were bad.
Yeah, I felt the same way. Sometimes you watch speedruns and you're kind of just blown away by the technicality or the glitches or whatever that they're using. This looked like just extremely clean, knowledgeable gameplay, because there are some enemies and some things that come at you so quickly, unless you know they're coming, it's hard to really be prepared for them, especially if you're focused on something else on the screen or doing anything else. It's hard to adjust.
Basically, every enemy moves twice as fast as you do anyway.
Yeah. So basic controls, honestly, very, very similar to Castlevania. You have your D-pad, which moves you around. You can crouch by pushing down. You have a jump button and you have an attack button. So quite similar.
Let me stop you.
All right.
Because I have to find out. You said you have an attack button. Did you know that there is a second type of attack that you can do?
Do you mean like an up attack?
If you hold up and you press B, you can do like an overhead swipe. That's not in the manual.
Oh, really?
You kind of just have to infer that on your own.
Interesting.
I checked the manual over again because I only learned about it from, I think, a game facts that I had read after I had game overed the first time. And yeah, it turns out that there is the overhead swing you can do by holding up and pressing B. And I was like, was that in the manual? I swear I didn't see that. And in the manual, they label the B button as a stab attack. But from what I had read, they don't make any mention at all of either the mechanic existing or like some kind of cryptic hint that you can do this. You would just have to figure it out on your own. And that's a real shame because it's extremely useful.
Yeah, they label the up button as entering doors, which, you do have to do sometimes. But one boss, at least that I can think of, I think, being able to swing up is quite useful. I mentioned the controls felt very similar to Castlevania. In my opinion, both kind of how you could move and then also the slowness of the movement.
Yes, I was going to ask you that.
But to me, they felt much better. Because you could kind of move while you were in air. As you were crouching, you could also move around. You couldn't jump and swing and things like that. So which was really aggravating. Yeah. That was a big bummer. Like, let me say, before we go too much farther, that my biggest, I think, bottom line for Wizards and Warriors X here on the Game Boy is that for everything that I found myself liking about the game, there was something about that exact aspect of the game's mechanics or whatever else it was that I didn't like as well. Okay, that's fair.
That's why I said it was more like a fortress of disappointment, because every time I found myself feeling like I was really enjoying the game or, moment to moment bits of the game, something would pop up to remind me, oh, okay, actually, this is really aggravating. The move kit was so good, because even though you were pretty slow, they gave you some pretty decent options. The fact that you couldn't jump and attack, though, why?
Yeah, I mean, you could change direction midair, right? And to me, that made it feel so much better.
Yes.
And it made you so much more agile. Being able to move while you're crouching made you so much more agile. You couldn't move and attack at the same time. So if you tried to do that, it would eat one of the inputs. But while it was probably the same pace as Castlevania, it still felt more intuitive, more, I don't know, just more fluid, I suppose, is the best way to say it.
No, I agree. Like, as soon as I started playing this game, I could not help but draw parallels to Castlevania The Adventure, which I think is kind of just part of the process because we're going chronologically. So we will have it be like, this feels like a game we just played recently. And you can't help but think of that. Like, you're in a medieval setting and a lot of the enemies are the same. There's bats and spiders and whatever. There are no spiders in Castlevania The Adventure, but there's no she-worm in Wizards and Warriors. So, point Castlevania. But, like, it feels very similar. And then the move kit is presented in Wizards and Warriors, and it's like, wow, if this was how Castlevania ran, I would probably feel very different about Castlevania, because I can move here and it doesn't feel like I'm slogging through molasses the entire time. It's more like,
even though I'm slow, yeah, I'm not encumbered or whatever.
yes, you're slow, and it wouldn't be as bad if the enemies weren't twice as fast as you were. Like, if everything was on the same speed scale, either you were faster or the enemies were slower, it would probably have balanced out a lot better. But yeah, you can't help but look at it as like, huh, I really wish Castlevania The Adventure felt more like this.
Yeah, and so I guess, I feel like if you could choose what level you wanted to start at, I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more, because it was, in my opinion, very rewarding to kind of learn the level, and kind of go through and be like, okay, now a bat's going to come. I need to attack. Okay, I need to dodge this fireball. Okay, that did feel very rewarding.
Sure.
But it did feel good to, kind of learn the level. And I think if, I could start at a level that I wanted to, say I had progressed to level 4, I could start at level 4, kind of learn that level, and then progress to level 5, etc. I think that would be a rewarding gaming experience. But the fact that, and I don't know how you felt about the hitboxes, I hated them because, a bat is moving from right to left, I suppose. And the entire time the sprite is hitting your sprite, it's dealing damage to you.
Yeah, no iframes. It's in my notes that there is no iframes. Like, you basically take a hit for as long as you are colliding with whatever is doing damage to you, and that sucks.
Exactly.
And they hit really hard, too. The enemies hit you for like a quarter of your health sometimes.
Yeah, there's no real indication when you're dealing damage or when you're taking damage. So I didn't love that. There's fall damage in this game, which I do
Oh my god. The fall damage is an insane choice on the developer's part. I looked to see if that was a thing that they do in the other versions, and they don't. As far as I could tell, I don't think that that's a thing in the NES versions, only in this one.
Interesting.
What were they thinking? It makes the boots of jumping like the most important item that you can pick up.
Yeah, so I typically dislike fall damage. It always seems a bit random and a little bit frustrating, but I at some point can also, I don't know, kind of appreciate it. This game, there were definitely times where it felt like the intended path almost required fall damage, but then you would also get hit by an enemy. So again, because you're getting hit the entire time the sprites are touching, when you take fall damage, you kind of stagger, so you can't move. So then you're getting hit by the enemy as well. So yeah, there were times that I went from full health to like half a heart just because I took fall damage and then something hit me. And that's not a good experience. You can learn how to play around that, but when that takes one of your, 3 lives or whatever, it makes it hard to really learn that and then get back to that point if you have to start from the beginning.
There were jumps that you could not clear without the boots of jumping, so you would have to go back to the treasure chest nearby to get the boots if you did not get them originally, which, like, not a sin, just kind of annoying.
Yeah. So the treasure chests were a bit of a point of contention for me because the first playthrough, I didn't understand them. I didn't get that you had to have a key to open them.
Sure.
Which in hindsight obviously makes a lot of sense. And there is a little indicator with the key and how many you have. But I tried pushing down, I tried pushing up, I tried attacking it. I tried all these different things to try and open the chests. And then occasionally you would just walk past one and it would be like, oh, you got a potion of healing. And I wouldn't know how that happened. It's somewhat obvious, so I'm not really marking that against the game. That's more of me just being a little dense at the beginning.
It doesn't help that you lose all your keys if you die one time.
And I wasn't really paying attention to the UI because it is a little bit jumbled, in my opinion. Like, there are a bunch of numbers and stuff.
It's very cluttered.
Yeah. So I wasn't really paying a whole lot of attention to that. Like you said, there are points where you have to have the boots of jumping to get past the platforming, and when you don't know how chests work, that's hard.
Where did you ultimately call it quits?
whatever level had the axes flying around and that.
Okay.
So I got through the big like skull door.
I hate the skull door. My wife was watching me for a short portion of this playthrough, and I got to the skull door, and she watched me die probably like 3 or 4 dozen times and like reload to try and get in there. And she was just like, why would you want to do this? I was like, it's for the show.
Yeah, that was particularly clunky. There's a giant skull, and it opens and closes its mouth. And you have to jump into its mouth, and that's the door out of the level. Great, awesome. As far as I could tell, it varies the timing in which it opens and closes its mouth.
Uh-huh.
And then also, if you jump too high, you kind of like hit the forehead and fall down. I could see getting extremely frustrated at that point without save states. And if that meant I then had to go back and do, at that point, I guess like 2 to 3 levels.
Yeah. You would have to fight the first boss and get through all of the area, because that door is essentially like the boss of that section of the game. So yeah, you would have to get through everything else to get back up to that point again.
Yeah. Things like that, to me, made it frustrating that there weren't continues or level selects.
A password system.
Password system is what I think would fit this game the best.
Yes.
But
you don't even have any like level ups or progress that gets saved. Like you don't have anything, experience, or none of the like pickups that you get apart from the boots of jumping, like stick with you.
that doesn't even stick with you through levels. Each level you lose it.
Right, but like it doesn't like go away over just like the time you spend in the level. It's still
Yeah.
you pick it up and you have it until, you know, like you die or the level runs out or whatever. But like it could just, you put in the password and it starts you at whatever level you password into with 3 lives and no keys and nothing else. Like, okay, that would be just fine, and it would make the most sense. They already have a high score name input. They could have just done a password.
Oh, I was about to say, the only thing is the Scroll of Honor, which is, like a high score tally, but it resets when you reset your Game Boy. So, you know, like that doesn't even really matter. So
if you put your name, I found this out also on GameFAQs.
Did you try this?
I did. No, I did it. It works. I did it every time.
Oh, yeah?
If you put your name as W, heart symbol W, when you start the game next time, you start with 6 lives instead of 3. Even that was like, oh, okay, that's nice that you start with extra lives, but they cap you at 9.
Oh, really?
I had memorized the game so much at one point that I was getting maximum lives, and then I was picking up even more lives after that, and I was like, oh, well, it says 9, I have probably like 12. It's just not keeping track, whatever. No, it's 9. I died after that and it dropped to 8. I was like, oh, so all the extra ones are just points? That sucks. Because once you hit the cap, it means that extra lives don't matter anymore. Gems don't matter anymore, because all the gems are for is a score and getting an extra life if you pick up 10 of them. So like once you reach the cap, so much of the game just doesn't matter, because like, yeah, you probably are going to run out of some of those lives, but all of the stuff that you're going to be picking up, God forbid you waste a key opening a chest and there's just gems inside when you really needed a potion of healing or something. Like, the memorization only goes so far when there's things like the skull door, or you didn't make it to the final boss. The final boss also was really aggravating. I would not go back to Wizards and Warriors to try and beat the game again now that I did it. I wasn't like super rewarded by it by the end. It was more just like, thank God that's over.
Yeah. But this one, if I could like bang my head against a level for, maybe 20 minutes and then move on with my life, do something else, come back, try the next level, I think I would like it more. But I think ultimately it wasn't enough. There wasn't enough there to make me really excited about it. The last, I guess, mechanical thing that I really kind of want to touch on, they do have kind of secret areas and, you know, little secrets and things like that that I found a little interesting.
I liked that a lot.
Yeah, if you go to GameFAQs, you can find maps of each level. And without those, I don't know if I would have found them. I wouldn't have ever thought to try and jump above the walls out of bounds.
Oh, that's a Super Mario Bros. Tactic. That's what I started doing that because I was like, oh, I can jump pretty high. Can I go over these walls? Does the UI stop me? So yeah, it was pretty neat to find out that that's how they handled that.
But yeah, there are some secret areas. If you backtrack from the start of the game, there's an extra life and a key. So some kind of like interesting, I guess, level design there. But aside from that, that's kind of all I have on the mechanics. It very similar to Castlevania, better in some ways, worse in a lot of ways.
I have nothing to add here. I'm ready for ad break time and then to talk about the aesthetics.
Alrighty, let's do it. Ad break time.
Ad break time.
Dang it!
What's up, sport?
This game is too hard.
Aw, don't let it get you down. Why not take a break and listen to the Critical DMG podcast?
How would that help me?
It won't.
Then why would I listen to a show about two old people talking about Game Boy games for an hour?
Hey!
I think I'll just go back to Minecraft.
Are you making a Game Boy game? Awesome. But, how does it sound? 'Cause if it isn't something like this, or maybe like this, or possibly something like this, you might want to do something about that. And I know just who can help. Tip Top Tomcat specializes in authentic Game Boy audio that's been used in over 50 projects so far. If you need something quick, you can find bundles of pre-made Game Boy audio assets ready and waiting on tiptoptomcat.itch.io. But if you need something more custom, reach out directly by emailing thetiptoptomcat@gmail.com with inquiries about commission availability. And remember, you don't want your Game Boy game to just sound good. You want it to sound tip-top. And we're back. So, Jeff, I want to know here up top on the aesthetics section for Wizards and Warriors X on the Game Boy, do you or do you not think that the opening title music is a straight banger track?
Yes.
It's so good.
So I, played this probably a week apart in like my first playthrough versus my second playthrough. And I had made a note. Yeah, the music gets pretty repetitive. And then I opened it back up, was like looking over my notes, listening to the title screen. And I was like, this is a banger. Like, what was I talking about with like the music being repetitive?
It's so good.
The music in the levels.
No, it does not stack up. And I mean, anybody listening, definitely go look the song up. If you are really into good Game Boy chiptune music, it is a really good example of just a solid loop for what it is. And it's pretty short, but it's really, really good.
Yeah.
The rest of the game's music doesn't stack up, especially in the first level. It really kind of sucks that it goes from such an awesome high of the intro music and then kind of craters immediately in the first level, because the rest of the music after that is pretty okay, but the first level is just not it.
Like I said, I had made that note. I opened the game. I opened my notes. I was looking. I was like, wow, yeah, this music's good. And I like went to make a note and I saw that I had already made a note about it. And I was like, oh, weird, whatever. Started level 1 and I was like, oh, that's what that note was for.
It is.
So,
yeah, I'm going to take like the title screen song and add it to the like big list of other Game Boy games to draw musical inspiration from when I need to commission music for my games or whatever, because it's really good. There's a lot of like readability stuff in this game that's kind of like tedious.
We already mentioned the UI.
Yeah, exactly. Same brain.
You have your health in the top left, which is 6 hearts. I don't know if they like go half or whatever, but
your hearts are supposed to go half. So like if you get hit and it does like 1 half heart, it makes the heart go from big to small. That's supposed to be like 1 hit, and then small to disappeared is like the next hit. Which is why when an enemy hits you for like 2 full hearts worth of damage, it's like, oh my gosh, what are you doing?
So you have that, then you have a number and a knight's head, which is the number of lives remaining. Then it splits into 2 rows. On the top row, you have the level. So L1-2-2, whatever.
Right.
Then you have a number, a symbol for gems collected, and then you have a number. Then in the bottom row, you have your score, which is 7 digits.
Right.
And then you have a key next to those 7 digits.
It's so much stuff.
If that made no sense to you listening, it doesn't make a whole lot more sense looking at it. I promise you.
Right.
So
at least if you look through the manual, it will explain the UI.
Yeah, exactly.
Before you just dive in head first. Whereas like we went in without looking at the manual ahead of time, and yeah, it's just a lot. It's only 2 rows worth of the screen's like tile count, but it's a lot. It's very dense to constantly be seeing, and ultimately very little of it feels like it matters.
Well, exactly. Like gem count, I guess, matters because you get an extra life. I didn't know that.
It's the same as like coins in a Mario, like, but you get 10 gems, you get an extra life. So like, keep the gems, keep the life count, keep the keys.
Score feels like it doesn't matter. Like score feels like it doesn't need that much real estate.
No, and I agree. And they could easily have done it, in the same way that like Castlevania does, where it's like tallied up at the end. But because they keep your score and you put your high score in as soon as you are dead, if you made a new high score, I can see why it's not stored that way. They have to keep it like real time.
That's fair.
So like, I get the need for having it, but like,
and we've both discussed how high score is not like our gameplay style. Yeah. So I guess for other people, maybe that's important info, but I'm like, I literally don't care. That could not be a game mechanic at all, and I would have just as much fun, but fair.
And I'm right there with you. Like, it wouldn't have mattered. I had the only reason I even cared about the high score table was so that I could put in the cheat name to get more lives at the beginning. But my score did not matter to me. Whatever score I ended the game on when I finally beat Malkil, I couldn't even tell you. It did not even enter my brain.
And it doesn't save, so it's gone forever now.
Yeah, so like, they could have shrunk that down or saved it for the end or tallied it up after the death of the character. The UI for the health is also really big. It's like 1/3 of the entire UI because it's got the little like embossed border and stuff. You know what it is, Jeff? This still feels like, oh, we need to show all of this information somehow or keep track of all of this information somehow. Just go ahead and cram it on the screen. Just put it all in there. Yeah. They're not really going to be paying attention to it anyway or whatever. If they don't, that's on them. At least we put it there. Just get it on the screen.
Yeah. This definitely feels like it could have used a little polishing.
It's a good attempt, yeah. I'm sure that with more polish or farther down the line, there might be games similar to this that have a UI that looks kind of like this or tries to convey the same information that just does it better.
Yeah. I feel like the style was all over the place with this. So,
for sure.
If you look at the box art, it's Conan the Barbarian is, or like He-Man is kind of, the vibe I get.
Yeah, it's just very like classical sword and sandal or sword and sorcery like barbarian look. Like someone rolled up this D&D character like this afternoon.
Exactly. And then you go to the game sprite, who is
a full armored knight.
Yeah.
He is a knight in full body armor, head to toe.
And kind of cute, right?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like a cutesy knight armor thing.
Kind of goofy. Like the way he like sits down on his butt and like falls over when he dies is kind of charming. Like,
yeah,
the enemy sprites are really goofy.
The spiders, I'm pretty sure, are like smiling at you. They kind of have like the smiley eyeballs. I don't know if
I love them.
I figured you would, but
they're my favorite.
Yeah, the entire time I was playing it, I was just like, I don't dislike any of these elements, but you put them all together and it just feels so disjointed.
Yeah, it doesn't mix very well. I don't know if you had paid a whole lot of attention to like the backgrounds and the way that moving from level to level is all, and this is also another like accessibility and just readability sort of thing. A lot of times it was kind of hard to tell where an exit would be because the wall didn't have like a door on it. You just had to kind of walk into the wall and hope that that was where you went.
Yeah.
So sometimes a door you could go into, sometimes a stair, like a doorway that led up some stairs you could press up and go into. And I know a lot of that is just trial and error, like memorization type stuff, but you couldn't tell the difference between this type of door I can enter into, this one I cannot, or this wall I can walk into and it will transport me to a new area, this one I cannot. It was just a mess.
I think the first door that had a stairway, like it was on the back wall, a door with a stairway that I tried to go in, I couldn't. And had I not watched the speedrun and knew that you could go through doors, from then on, I would have thought, oh, this is just not a mechanic in the game. These are just purely background items. I can't interact with them. And you have to in later portions of the game. And that would have been, again, very frustrating had I not already seen that.
Speaking on the background elements, you didn't get this far, but one of the most obnoxious things that they do in the final areas of the game is the clouds that are moving platforms that you jump on in the earlier portions of the game. Those same clouds are just clouds in the background.
Oof.
But some of them are still moving platforms. 1 out of 3 or 4 are platforms, and it's like, oh, come on.
The person I was watching was fantastic. Uchi, I think. UCCI, I guess I'll call him out since, I'm referencing him a lot.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Credit where it's due.
He just knew. And so it looked seamless, but I could see that being extremely annoying.
It felt like it wasn't hard to figure out, that you could only still jump on the ones that were actively moving.
Mm-hmm. But like make it a different sprite or something. Right.
Like just make it like, instead of using those, just make it one of the like tile ones that go up and down in like the early sections. It was a nitpick, but it was just kind of annoying.
So story isn't something we've talked a whole lot about, I guess, in this section. But I did want to bring it up for this game because I felt like it was such a missed opportunity. I feel like if you read the manual and you read other things, it has a fleshed out story, but in game, it doesn't. Between every stage or chapter, you see like a little scroll and it just says something along the lines of like,
Malkil's gonna get ya.
Yeah, essentially. And even when you win, it just, is kind of like, congratulations, you won. It doesn't use any of those times to, one, what we were talking about earlier, give you a passcode to get back to that level.
Yep.
Great time to do that.
Exactly.
But also, yeah, give me some story. Tell me that I just went through, the ramparts, or I just, each chapter has a name. So just tell me like, oh yeah, you just entered the dungeon, blah, 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 blah. Or you're entering Malkil's chambers. I feel like that was such a wasted opportunity for story progression, and to add the story into the game to make it to where you don't have to use supplemental products to understand the story. You can just get the story from the game, which I think a lot of people, maybe that's a new thing that we're used to, but I felt let down because, yeah, playing the game, it's just the same line that they put in after each level that they could have used for story progression.
The game calls them chapters. They could have leaned in and made it seem like a cohesive story by having more flavor in between each of the different areas of the game. And they even go as far as to make the overlay that comes down and closes out and opens up every new chapter look bespoke.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like a dungeon gate coming down from the screen and then lifting back up. Like, they obviously went that extra step to give it character, but every single time up until the end of the game, every text is just, Malkil's gonna get you. You're gonna keep walking through the dungeon.
Yeah.
Disappointing. I think I'm done with the aesthetics. I want to circle back and just cover one last time. Final word on recommending Wizards and Warriors X Fortress of Fear.
I would still kind of say, if I had a save state at each level, I would potentially go and play certain levels multiple times. However, without that, I would probably never touch this again. Honestly, even with that, I will probably never touch this again because I did create a save state at each level. So I kind of have those. I think you said it best. For each thing that was good, it just had a little bit of a pain point or a sticking point that was enough to make it neutral at best.
Yeah, that about sums it up for me. I beat it. I made my way through it. Anybody watching the footage of it, I am probably going to leave in at least some of the footage of me having to hit that hard reload button, because
I'm specifically leaving in the reloads on the skull gate.
I was going to do the same thing.
Because there were times when it was jump, reload, jump, reload, jump, reload, jump, reload.
Yep.
Specifically leaving that in. So
yep, same.
Maybe you're watching that right now, but
yep, that's the plan, because I do want to drive home that there is some stuff in this game that I like. And if you are someone with more patience than either of us, probably, and you've got like an afternoon or an evening to burn or something, this might be more for you than it was for us.
I strangely think learning the speedrun for this would be significantly more fun than actually playing the game.
Every time Jeff says something about speedrunning a game, we're going to add a sheet, and all those games are going to go on this list, and you're eventually going to have to start doing speedruns.
Oof.
Listeners, write in.
Motocross Maniacs, I was like, not updated in 7 years. I can do this. This one 8 months ago, I'm like, ooh, they're grinding this. I want to say it was like a 946, and he was like, oh, that's still a 46. I could have had a 45. And like, if you're grinding seconds, then
optimized.
Yeah, it's not a speedrun you want to jump into.
Too bad. Listeners, write in. We're going to start holding Jeff accountable for speedruns. All right. So having said all that, I am pretty sure that it is now time to move on to the least disappointing part of this show. Are you ready for our Wizards and Warriors quiz?
I was like, oh, you haven't heard my answers yet, but hopefully it's not disappointing. So I'm currently at 71%. So I do need a perfect score here to increase my percentage. 2 for 3 won't hurt too bad, but perfect would be best.
Ooh, it's getting harder the higher your score goes. Just like real life. Okay. Wizards and Warriors X Fortress of Fear quiz.
Let's do it.
Question 1. The original developers of the Wizards and Warriors series, Rare, are remembered for many of the titles released during their peak in the 90s. However, considering the actual size of their pretty extensive library of releases, plenty of games that were made by them aren't really associated with them in the same way. Which of these is not a game developed by Rare in the same year as Wizards and Warriors X Fortress of Fear was?
So in 1990, is that correct?
So which of these is not a game developed by Rare in 1990?
Okay.
A. Double Dare. B. Ivan Iron Man Stewart's Super Off-Road. C. Narc. Or D. All of these are Rare games.
I think you're using this against me because I brought this up in the past, but I'm going to go with D, that all of them are Rare games. I think you're using it against me. I think that's what I'm going with.
I said the last time that it's against the rules of the show to use reverse psychology or other tactics in the quiz. So I would not be doing that. These are made entirely free of any such influence. But yes, it is D.
Let's go. All right.
Rare has just made so many games, especially over those early years, that not all of them can get the same amount of love and shine from fans and critics, whether those games are actually good or bad. Some other things that Rare made were Jeopardy 25th Anniversary Edition.
Ooh, gotta have that.
Snake Rattle and Roll, which I do like, and A Nightmare on Elm Street.
All right. I'm continuing my streak of not getting 0 correct. So that's good. That's good.
Right. And you also have gotten most of the first questions right, I think. If we actually were keeping track of exactly which questions you got right in every episode, I think you have a habit of getting the first one right a lot of the time.
Oh, now I want to add that, but I don't want to add that to my spreadsheet.
You would just have to go back and listen to the episode quizzes all over again.
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready for question 2?
I am. Let's do it.
Question 2. Naturally, a game as difficult and unwieldy as this one got attention in print guides and magazines to help people get through it a little easier. However, quality control can sometimes be a little bit lacking with these sorts of things. In the case of the 1990 Canadian publication Game Player's Strategy Guide to Game Boy Games, which print error affects the Wizards and Warriors X section? Is it A, many screenshot captions are mixed up and copied over to new pages with unrelated images? B, the evil wizard Malkil is instead referred to as Mudkip throughout the entire section? C, illustrations of bats cover up important information in multiple places? Or D, there is nothing wrong whatsoever with the section at all?
Oh, I wish Mudkip was
reaching into the past.
Yeah, visioned before, but ooh, I'm gonna go with A. I feel like bats covering things is possible.
You only get one final answer though, so
I know. Yeah, I'm torn because I'm trying to think what is a more likely human error. Copy and pasting the wrong thing, very common, but I also think graphic design going back and pasting stuff over things that are important to make it look good is also common. Yeah, I'm going to go with A. I think the copy and paste of like incorrect things is a bit too on point for people.
It's A.
Yes, let's go.
So throughout the Wizards and Warriors section, screenshots have repeated captions, as well as captions that are shifted over from neighboring images and some other print errors that cause a lot of that section to not really make a whole lot of sense. So one example is the caption underneath an image of that diabolical skullmouth door instead reads, quote, "Should you take on the serpent or the bat first? The serpent is limited to the water, so destroy the bat before facing the serpent," which is obviously super relevant and very helpful advice for that specific moment in the game.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't even know what number or what that equates to.
There was a caption that caption about the bat and the serpent or whatever was underneath an image of the first part of stage or like chapter 1, where you first see the serpent like pop out of the ground or whatever.
Oh, okay.
So that was the caption for that picture, but that caption was copy pasted to another picture a couple pages after of the skullmouth door. And it's like, this doesn't make any sense. And then the actual skullmouth door caption is in like a special blurb box on the bottom of the page instead. Like, it's a mess.
Huh. Anyway, not doing too bad.
No, they're starting 1990 out strong. So let's finish strong on this one. Ready for question 3?
Let's do it. I don't like the laugh at the beginning. But...
No, you'll understand why as soon as I start reading the question.
All right.
Apart from the game that we just played, the rest of the Wizards and Warriors games were all released on the NES, this being the original game and 2 sequels. Despite there not being much time between the first NES entry and Wizards and Warriors X on the Game Boy, it seems like an odd jump to go from the beginning of a series to the 10th entry so soon. Is it true or false that we never got the missing half dozen games at any point or on any system?
Yeah, that's true.
It is.
Let's go.
There were never any other Wizards and Warriors apart from 1, 2, and 3 on the NES and then 10 on the Game Boy. There was never a 5 or a 7 or a 9 or anything else like that.
3 came after this one though, right?
Yes. Yeah, it went 1, 2 on the NES and then 10 on the Game Boy and then 3 on the NES.
Do you know why? Like, did you see anywhere why they called this one X, or is that just actually a mystery?
I have not found any explanation as to why they decided to go so far ahead, and I think even the developers were kind of confused for the big jump.
That's what I saw.
Yeah. So very strange, especially, I could see them going back later and filling in the gaps, but they just never did.
Yeah, I saw Nintendo Power apparently was like asking Acclaim why they named it Chapter X, and they were like,
I don't know.
So
you figure it out.
All right. That was a good result. So I'm up to 75%
Heck
now.
yeah.
That's solid.
If you go up next time and you get all 3 right next time, will you be out of the 70s or are we not there yet?
We'll have to find out next week.
That's true.
I can do the math, but I'm not going to. So
boo.
What is our listener question?
Okay. So the box art for Fortress of Fear on the Game Boy has an artistic depiction of a harness-clad barbarian type, which we definitely mentioned earlier, and is really odd considering that the player sprite is just a knight in full armor. While the mismatch between the cover character and the in-game character persists in all of the games in the series, which is to say that all of the games have cover art showing a barbarian guy, and you play as an armored knight in all of them. So that's just a thing they stuck with. In the previous entry, right before this one, which is Wizards and Warriors, actually technically the name is Iron Sword, Wizards and Warriors 2, I believe.
Yeah.
And that's on the NES. Mm-hmm. It uses a painted rendition of a photographed model in costume instead of any illustration. And it's a pretty famous one for the time too. So the question for the audience is, who was the model used on the cover of Iron Sword, Wizards and Warriors 2?
I have no idea. I hope I know who it was, but I don't even know if this person was alive then.
We'll have to find out.
I'm looking it up now. Anyway,
No spoilers.
Not the first person I was thinking.
Up.
But anyway, not going to spoil that. But yeah, I think that brings us to an end. Thanks for listening to Critical DMG. If you would like to support us further, please leave a review wherever you get your podcasts and maybe recommend us to your friends or anyone else you know who might like the show. It really helps us out, and we really appreciate it. Unfortunately, not a lot of wizards, a lot more warriors in this one, so...
Only one wizard.
Yeah, a little disappointing for Tony on, the end of our last episode.
Team Wizard.
But,
I sided with the Wizards, and I was disappointed.
Yeah, you sided wrong.
What's next week?
Boxel?
Boxel.
Is that how you say it? Boxel?
Boxel.
Sokoban.
Ah, so we're going to be pushing some Boxels.
Is it Boxel Sokoban?
Sokoban is like block pushing.
Ah.
So we're going to be
pushing boxes.
Yep.
So join us for that.
Yep, that's what it is. We're going to bully some Boxels. Bye everybody.
Bye everyone.